what could I possibly say that would be different or that would have new meaning, even for myself? So I hope that this maybe not only I think things are important when they touch something in us, right? When it resonates, right? That we're more likely to pay attention if we if it lands somewhere in our being, like, oh, that sounds familiar, or yes, that reflects my history, or no, I want to learn more about that. So maybe hopefully some part of this will do one of those things for you this Advent. Okay, can you see my screen?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Waiting now more than ever. And I chose the color blue because for, well, almost a half a century now, blue has been the color of Advent. It used to be purple. Everyone might remember that, because it was considered, and still is, a penitential season, a season of reflection. A penitential means, I think you all know that, like kind of self examination, seeing where we've fallen short, asking for forgiveness, returning to the Lord, that kind of thing. But when we did some liturgical reform, like I say, 50 years ago, a little bit longer even in some places, the color was changed to blue. Blue as that sort of lightening of the sky that we get in the dawn, right? It's not completely dark anymore. It's the blue of that. It's the blue that we associate with Mary, the mother of Jesus. So it's a blue that's a preparatory blue rather than a penitential blue, or purple. So, um, and it was a lovely screen that PowerPoint provided. So, so it was very serendipitous. And I know how much you all love the Wordles. So I found a Wordle about Advent. And I was so interested because the words waiting and wait are the most prominent, which means whoever did this Wordle, and I have no idea, I did not do that research, found that those things, like if I were to ask you if there was a word that you associate with Advent, I wonder what it might be. You can just all just shout it out.
Hmm.
Air. Anticipation.
Yeah.
Newness.
Yeah.
Hope.
Yeah.
Being still.
Prepare.
Well, you can see those and many others appear on the screen. But what I thought was interesting, that wait and waiting, along with the other things that you mentioned, appear as well. Um, I like I didn't. What I thought was interesting is the words little and small were on there, um, and I wonder. I would so that I've been thinking about that. How what that meant to someone. Something little and something small. What does that?
Mm.
Does that mean in the form of a baby, maybe, or as the story begins? Right, it begins from a single event and grows. Anyway, that's my little introduction there. And you'll notice the colors. There is some purple and there is some blue.
Allison, it does look like some of them are a little off. I mean, they don't seem to fit in my view.
Yeah, which ones are you curious about?
Well, one says many lots, and one says suspect.
Yeah.
In May, what does May have to do with it? Anyway, it just seems like our group wouldn't have chosen those words.
Well, May, is what are possibilities, right?
Oh, okay.
Suspect is that sometimes I have an OA, I don't know, kind of from day to day, I'm going to, my own doubt about perhaps a virgin birth, perhaps the call, the Christ that comes again, the the kind of things that we talk about a lot in church language. Sometimes, we question. We things are suspect. How do things come together in that way? And since we come from a tradition that regularly questions things openly and honestly, I think that might be that, Kathy, that idea
Okay.
of something that might be uh, not suspect in the terms of, like bad food in your refrigerator, um, but maybe something more to be curious about. But you never know what kind of words pop into our heads, do we?
Yeah, and that might
I
be
don't know about many lots. That one I cannot tell you. That is an intro. Who knows what someone was reading before
I
they.
don't think those two words are connected.
Maybe it just means loads and loads of,
Mhm.
right? An abundance.
Mhm.
Some of you may know this poem by Mary Oliver. Dear Lord, I have swept and I have washed, but still nothing is as shiny as it should be for you. Under the sink, for example, is an uproar of mice. It is the season of their many children. What shall I do? And under the eaves and through the walls, the squirrels have gnawed their ragged entrances. But it is the season when they need shelter. So what shall I do? And the raccoon limps into the kitchen and opens the cupboard while the dog, whoops, this is me trying to move things around on my screen. While the dog snores, the cat hugs the pillow. What shall I do? Beautiful is the new snow falling in the yard, and the fox who is staring boldly up the path to the door. Still, I believe you will come, Lord. You will. When I speak to the fox, the sparrow, the lost dog, the shivering sea goose, I know that really I am speaking to you. Whenever I say, as I do all morning and afternoon, come in, come in. A beautiful way to prepare for Advent. And this quote from Anne Lamott, whom I'm sure many of you know, this is from her book, Bird by Bird. I heard a preacher say recently that hope is a revolutionary patience. Let me add that so is being a writer. Hope begins in the dark, the stubborn hope that if you just show up and try to do the right thing, the dawn will come. You wait and watch and work. You don't give up. Hope is a revolutionary patience. And then she wrote this letter. My dear blank, hope is a revolutionary patience. Hope is an idea that if one continues to strive, a revolution shall happen. Whether that revolution be exterior or interior is unknown. Hope is the idea that if you continue to show up every day, continue to put one step in front of another, you will reach a city so bright it blinds. The person who hopes has revolution in their heart. And I don't know why she signed the letter falsely yours, except if she was always examining perhaps her own motives, which probably we all ought to do more often. So the practice of revolutionary patience. I'm going to do a little bit of teaching from Dorothy Soleil, who's a Roman Catholic, now deceased theologian who taught at Union Seminary from the mid 70s to the mid 80s. She's written quite a number of books. She's an extraordinary person. She wrote a little book of poetry called Revolutionary Patience, which is which is quite phenomenal, and I recommend it. I'm going to read something out of it later. And then this fellow, Ched Myers, from his book, Bind the Strong Man, which is his work on the Gospel of Mark.
Hmm.
So those are my two primary sources. And then this quote, above all, trust is the slow work of God. And I chose it because I think patience indicates a slow work, does it not? Right? It's like making bread that has to rise. It's like waiting for paint to dry. It's like all those things that take time. Oh, I was thinking that too. Good pie crust, because you have to put it back in the refrigerator. It has to stay cold. The things that I never think about when I'm planning my own meal preparation. You know, the hour that you should let the dough sit. That kind of slow work. I think that is that, and then it's also the place in my own spiritual life where I can not where I get too impatient. Um, when things aren't happening the way I think they ought to happen at the time I think they ought to happen. I think that's where I can easily drop trust as the slow work of God. Mark's gospel tells us instead to school ourselves in the revolutionary patience of God. That was from last week's gospel, right? Where we're to keep awake and watch and be alert. Chet Myers writes, Mark's gospel advocates neither fatalism nor escapism, but a revolutionary commitment to the transformation of history, which always demands political vigilance and discernment. It involves experimenting with a political practice that will break, not perpetuate, the reign of domination in our world.
Mm.
So Myers is quite, it's opposed to some authors or some theologians who would run from the idea of the political part of Mark. He really focuses on it. And his idea, and Dorothy Soleil's idea of patience is very much tied to the political world. And that does not mean to politics particularly or partisan politics, but to the changing of systems that keep people either in oppressed or isolation. So in the 1980s, the German feminist liberation theologian Dorothy Soleil coined the term revolutionary patience to describe an attitude, a mindset, a complex virtue that I think is necessary for progressives and liberals to cultivate in our own time. It holds in tension a sense of urgency consistent with the size of the problems we face, for example, catastrophic climate change, and a resilience that meets setbacks and defeats with both the hope and determinism to remain in the struggle for the long haul. Revolutionary patience refuses to despair, even given near apocalyptic context. As one example, it enabled the bearing and raising of children even during the Second World War. That's her example.
Mhm.
But so even when things can seem, or when things are, not just seem, when things are daunting, when problems are bigger than we think we can handle, um, um, that is where this idea of revolutionary patience would would come into play. History is full of other examples that show a subversive revolutionary form of hope for the future. in ancient Judah on the eve of the invasion by the Babylonians. The prophet Jeremiah, who had for years been warning of the impending invasion and resulting exile, bought a piece of land as a symbol, a visual parable, if you will, that Jews would one day once more buy and sell property in the land of promise. Kentucky's farmer, poet, novelist Wendell Berry, in his poem Mad Farmer, advises plant sequoias. Now that is an example, is it not, of revolutionary patience? And what sustained such heroes as Nelson Mandela, Aung San Suu Kyi, or Václav Havel through the years or decades of imprisonment? And I would suggest that revolutionary patience did sustain them. So it's not complacency and the hope that fuels it or is fueled by it. It is not blind optimism. It is very reality based, but not cynical and not despairing. It is practiced not only in prison cells, but on picket lines and while holding the hands of dying loved ones in hospitals or nursing homes or hospices, or while taking another low paying temp job and continuing the Great Recession era search for good employment. It counts mild reforms like the Affordable Care Act as steps in the right direction, while knowing its glaring flaws and limitations. Revolutionary patience is never satisfied with the status quo ante, but it knows the wisdom of celebrating partial and flawed victories. Life in the struggle must be joyful and not Sisyphean. Right? You know the story of Sisyphus, right? Pushing that rock again and again up the same hill. Advent allows us this time of waiting joyfully, of waiting hopefully, of waiting peacefully. These are the adjectives that we use to describe it. I have included this horribly long poem by Wendell Berry. And if you want, I can read it, but I do recommend it to you. This poem is now, geez, I don't know, 30 years old. And I have preached on it before in an Easter sermon, but we have time. So if you like listening to my voice, I guess it'll be okay.
Sure.
Love the quick profit, the annual raise, vacation with pay, want more of everything ready made. Be afraid to know your neighbors and to die, and you will have a window in your head. Not even your future will be a mystery anymore. Your card will be punched in your mind will be punched in a card and shut away in a little drawer. When they want you to buy something, they will call you. When they want you to die for profit, they will let you know. So friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord. Love the world. Work for nothing. Take all that you have and be poor. Love someone who does not deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Praise ignorance, for what man has not encountered, he has not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Give your approval to all who cannot understand. Now, I have obviously repeated something here. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves are harvested when they have rotted into mold. Give your approval. Let's see. So I did this. I didn't do a very good job here. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees for every 1,000 years. Listen to carrion. Put your ear close. Hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is miserable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. So long as women do not go cheap for power, please women more than men. Ask yourself, Will this satisfy a woman satisfied to bear a child? Will this disturb the sleep of a woman near to giving birth? Go with your love to the fields, lie easy in the shade, rest your head in her lap, swear allegiance. I have to move my thing at the top. To what what is nighest your thoughts? As soon as the generals and the politicos can predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way you didn't go. Be like the fox who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection. Advent, a time for us to change things up. Change occurs somewhere in the middle between what was and what will be. This takes patience, understanding, and a reminder to grow our own capacity for kindness, openness, and connection. Know that no matter how much good you put out into the world, it will only take one flash of anger to diminish all the work because of its damaging effects on both ourselves and others. When we respond, the first step is to pause, to literally silence our first reaction and instead respond with goodness and a loving response.
Hmm.
Right now, patience is the most revolutionary act because it goes against our knee jerk reaction to lock more tightly into our opinions of them and against friend and foe. And this is from the South African poet Breton Brechtenbach. It is not enough to rail against the descending darkness of barbarity. One can refuse to play the game. A holding action can be fought. Alternatives must be kept alive while learning the slow art of revolutionary patience.
Allison, is it some kind of coincidence that the
Hmm.
showing up in different sources of revolutionary patience?
Right.
It's because that's what I've been working on.
No, but that all these poets would pick that phrase.
Yes, right. And how often is that in art or poetry or music that we find kind of the keys toward our waiting,
Wow.
or their ability to express. Haven't we known that for a long time? Writers' ability, especially poets, to express this idea of the long game, of the what we call in theology the already and the not yet, right? The future and the now, the coming of Christ, and and the always coming of Christ. That is indeed that same concept, I think. And finally, revolutionary patience is born of a deep joy that stems from a profound hope for a better future. That's why we refuse to play the game as it is now. Something better can be, a brighter future is coming. Oh, wishful thinking, we might say. But this possibility is closer than we might think. This action is at your fingertips. The alternative is as close as your breathing. We can see the beginnings taking shape already. Wherever we see love, joy, peace, patience,
Mhm.
kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. We know those as the gifts of the Spirit, right?
Spirit. Yeah.
Right? We see the dawn, which came in the birth of Jesus Christ, slowly becoming the full light of day. I hope that each time we see these signs of the Spirit of Christ, we might feel a little stirring of revolutionary patience, might feel the thrill of deep joy and hope, even in the midst of darkness, that we might take up God's invitation to live generously, gently, peacefully, and so make our contribution to the coming reign of Christ. Christ. And I adore Rumi poetry, and somehow I thought this fit. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And then this little piece of art that says, hold on. And I think sometimes there are days when that is what we do. And that is a particular kind of waiting as well. We hold on to what we believe, to what we hope, to what we wish, to what has been promised. Hold on. Well, thank you for your patience in that little bit of uh, kind of journey into revolutionary patience, or the possibility that just by waiting, we're doing something revolutionary. For many of us who did not go and stand in protest marches because of perhaps our age or medical conditions, right? Who supported people who were, I think it gave me some hope to know that by practicing revolutionary patience, I too was contributing to something larger than myself. I too was working for the good of the kingdom of God, just in waiting. And so we have these beautiful 4 weeks of waiting where we too can practice some revolutionary patience. So I'd love to hear what you all think.
Mary Lou,
Do I what?
did you raise your hand?
Huh?
Did you want to say something?
No, I was zipping up my vest.
Oh, okay.
Well, can I,
Yes, Liz.
to add to your question, Kathy, this is just a technical question. Allison, did all those people, those poems and essays that you read, where they used the terms revolutionary patience, that they all use those terms, those different authors, that this term has sort of just come out of the heavens of literary genius and landed on people's heads, and they use the same term? It's